Hey pilots, today I want to talk to you about the things that are checked during pilot onboarding. So there are a lot of background items that are checked for pilots. And today I'm going to list out what they are, just a brief list and explanation so that you can understand all of the things that are checked during like airline pilot onboarding, okay? So the first thing they're going to check is, and this is probably validated at some point during the interview process, is going to be your licenses and certifications. So your pilot certificates, your medical certificate. So they're going to want to vet and validate all of those things to make sure that you have all of the documentation required. Your restricted radio operators permit, all of those things, right? So they're going to check and make sure you have all of those certificates and licenses you need to do the job. And then they're also going to check what used to be called PRIA, now it's Pilot Records Database. So they're going to check that as well for previous employers, previous pilot records. So they're going to check for accident, incident, enforcement history. All of those things are going to show up on that PRD. And then they're going to do a criminal background check. So let's talk about the background checks because there's some confusion. Some people think, oh, it only goes back 10 years. Some people say it goes back all the way. So as a pilot, you may have more than one. So typically an airline runs a 10-year background check on every employee. Okay, so yes, there's that one that's done on every employee. 10-year background check looking for criminal history, right? But then there's also the one that is for the CHRC, which is for like TSA clearance. That one is forever, right? That one isn't 10 years. That's anything that's been on your record. So there, make sure that you understand that when it comes to disclosure, right? You need to disclose everything that might show up because there's a more intensive background check with the fingerprinting, right? That's done for pilots. Normal employees typically they don't get the fingerprinting, right? They just do like the standard background check from like a background check company. And then they do an employment verification. Again, that's usually part of the 10-year thing. So they're going to look back 10 years. So make sure you have all of your employers on your application and resume, even non-aviation, right? They're going to go back and verify your previous employers. So make sure you have that on there, okay? And then they're also going to look at your driving record. So they're going to pull a driving record check. Usually, depending on the airline, it could be 7 years back, 10 years, 3 years, depending on what their criteria is. Looking for serious stuff like accident history, DUIs, things like that. Tickets, guys, not a big deal. Don't stress over a couple of speeding tickets, okay? Then your drug and alcohol testing history. This is part of the PRD, right? It's in there. If you were at a job like if you had a former pilot job and you were in a drug program, there's records that they send saying, hey, yeah, you were fine. You never refused to test. You did all your tests, etc., etc. And then they do an education verification. This is usually part of the background check, but then also like if you're going to an airline that requires a college degree, not so much anymore. But for Legacy Airline, they still want to see like your college degree paperwork. So if you have one, they're going to want to see the degree and all the paperwork coinciding with that. Or if you're a pilot that qualifies for restricted ATP, they're going to want to see that. So for when you take your check ride and you get your ATP with your type rating during your airline training. And then one thing I want to mention is be cautious of your social media. People are checking it more and more. Employers are checking it more and more. So make sure that, you're keeping it professional or you're keeping it locked down if you don't want to keep it professional. But, people can screenshot what's on your page. So I would be careful and just keep it professional. So hopefully that helps y'all understand what's included in airline pilot onboarding as far as background checks and things that we check for. And hopefully this helps y'all. If you have questions about it, send me a message. Talk to y'all soon.